Afternoon.
Kenya, happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. So today we are going to jump into your business's data and how it is a key component of your business's success.
Yep.
So we send out the newsletter a day in advance or the morning of in some cases. But for those of you that are subscribers, you have obviously seen where there's the conversations about AI and all the other aspects of incorporating different capabilities within your product offerings. And so today we want to talk about the data that you have within your organization.
Yes. Whether you have it or whether you can go out and buy it to accelerate your innovation.
Absolutely. And the reason I think of this, I thought this was a timely topic, is a number of clients have been either exploring or asking questions around the opportunity to use the vast amount of data they have within their organization
Yes.
that is related to either purchasing behavior of their customers, or it's different data around activities, um, different aspects of the actual offering that they provide. And so now they have all this data that they're doing not doing anything with, or they're utilizing it maybe around marketing, sales, motion and activities, but they might not be utilizing it effectively in the way in which they provide a landscape
Yeah.
of that particular industry to their broader customer base. So, how do I use data that's across my customers to aggregate and serve up in a way that I can help each individual customer get value by seeing what others in their particular industry or space are doing?
Mhm.
What are some of the trends around performance and activities? So that's been a big topic. And I think as we look at 2024 planning for a lot of organizations, you've got to think about how you can start to use that data more effectively.
Yes. Absolutely. And really the first step is inventory
Hmm.
your own data. So I think a lot of companies have a lot more data that they don't really realize how valuable it can be, whether it's back to your point from a marketing perspective, from a customer support perspective, but also from product development, innovation, getting into the machine learning AI pieces. That's all about data, and a lot of times I think people have a tremendous amount more than they really realize.
Hmm.
So you think about, especially we're in a cloud-based world now. They've got all kinds of data about how people are using their products. They have gold standards out there in terms of, that they could leverage in their own products. Going back to the AI concept, but I think that inventorying is really important to step back, look at your processes, really look at the data you have. What can you do with it? Don't get rid of it. Even if you're not sure what you want to do with it today, it might be
Hmm.
something you can leverage tomorrow. So I think, we just don't have the same restrictions we had before where it's like, it's so expensive to keep and house all this data. So you throw it away, get rid of it. And there's kind of a shift to do the opposite now. There are providers out there, they have the tools, to collect this data. So keep it. You don't know what you'll do.
Yeah.
Look what Google, with some of their green initiatives, they have had data that they've been collecting for other purposes for years that only recently I forgot what it's called now, but only recently they're leveraging that to really look
Hmm.
at changes that can be made in buildings and other areas to save energy, move the green movement. So anyhow, I always think people need to inventory that data, see what you have and see what you don't have. You know,
Yeah, that's key.
Yes, what's missing and why? Why are
Yeah.
we not collecting that? Or why should we be collecting it? So,
And I think with what you're saying, the caveat is also making sure that you are housing that data in a way that it can't be compromised. It's
Right.
anonymized, so you're
Yep.
taking out personal information, or if you're serving that data up across your customer base, you're making sure that any information that's specific to one customer is not being
Right.
surfaced to a competitor, that kind of thing. So I think data inventory, also making sure that you have cleansed that data and you're housing that data in a secure and ethical way is really, really
Yes.
important, because we've seen where that's gone wrong in the past. Um, and like you said, I think your comment about what you don't have
Hmm.
is a good next step. So it's about understanding what's missing from that data, and what do my customers need to get from that data? So, what are some of the questions that they have around best practices in the industry, or how competitors are serving up clients
Yes.
effectively in ways that maybe you're not? Or operational improvements that you can make based on insights across your industry that we can
Yep.
sometimes only get from conferences or different types of summits or workshops within our industry. And those can be limited in terms of your ability to leverage that data throughout the year.
Right.
That's a one and done in terms of a week long conference, where this is now a way for you, business or service provider to other businesses. You now have a way to help them or deliver value to them that they can use, like in the newsletter, the example of John Deere
Yes. Exactly.
aggregating data across farms and then using that data to help one individual farmer see how they can adjust and manipulate things to make their output more effective, their
Yes.
harvest stronger, that sort of thing.
Exactly. That's a great example. I love that example when, we found that and read about what they were doing with the data. And even other ones like Tesla, they have tons and
Mhm.
tons of data, that they use for their, and we don't want to get into, we know there are accidents out there with the
Mhm.
self-driving cars, but they have tons and tons of data they're collecting around accidents, around human behaviors, human driving behaviors, just all kinds of. They have tons and tons of data that they keep feeding into their software to improve that capability.
Mhm.
But I think more importantly, if Tesla were to go, you know what, we're done. I kind of was reading about this, that the fact is they will continue making a ton of money just off their data. So
Mhm.
that's another thing is how you can also monetize your data by
Mhm.
offering it, like you said, to other businesses. But that was
Right.
another fun example where that they do say that Tesla can get out of the business of selling vehicles and really be fine. They go into business of selling their data.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And I think we've seen examples in the past where that has gone wrong for
yeah,
different companies. And again, this goes back to how you house and what you house in that data. And so you've got to have some level of rigor or expertise around making sure that you are capturing and utilizing the right data set.
yeah,
So does this data set, is it comprehensive? And this kind of goes back to the way in which machine learning is being trained, and what goes in,
yes,
it will either add to or take away from the quality of what comes out. And so
yep,
when you think about that data that you are now monetizing, is that data in a state where you can share it out without compromising
right,
any one group or group of individuals, but also thinking about how and what do my consumers of this data actually need. So there is some amount of work that needs to be done,
yep,
in
absolutely,
thinking about capturing those needs or opportunities that exist, because you just don't want to hand over data or think that, oh, because we know how to configure this data and serve it up, that we're done. You've
right.
got to make sure, and we've seen this throughout our careers, is from the standpoint of looking at how that data is used, you've got to understand what are the questions that data needs to answer.
Exactly. Yep. It's a data in, data out, right?
Mhm.
It's only as good as what you're feeding the system. So, and there are other. I think we've recently worked on a project where we definitely push, or I not maybe push is a heavy word, but recommend that you do look at that data. So you're revamping a big feature in a project in
Mhm.
a product,
Mhm.
and right now there's this expectation that these things are a little smarter based on data, either based on that customer's own data because they've been using your system for a long time. You should be able to train it to we know when you do X, usually you also need to do Y based on the history of your usage. So why not help out a little more with that? So I know we tend to push on that, like while you're revamping, why don't you leverage some of that data to
Mhm.
improve that experience for the users, make their work more efficient, less error prone, that sort of thing. And I am thinking about, like templates that can be generated to get people started on
Mhm.
whatever it may be, a presentation, a workflow, whatever that thing may be. But you've got the data, or a lot of these organizations have the data. So let's start pulling together gold standards that are available for all of your customers.
Right, right. And I definitely see a shift in not just using that data to improve operations, especially like if you're in a manufacturing or industrial
Yeah.
setting where that data can help you optimize your processes and how you produce or create. But it's also about now doing that, but in conjunction with that, also looking at how that data can be used to answer those customer questions.
Yes. Yep.
I also think that shifting or a shift in mindset within your organization to look at cultivating a mindset within the organization that everyone's a data collection um,
Everyone.
or a contributor
Yep.
is really, really helpful in getting people to think about, again, what
Right.
is the information that I'm gaining or getting? How can this information be used for good, for value, for action, that sort of thing? And having more of those collaborative sessions around now. These are the types of data that I've collected and that you've collected. Let's look at how collectively this data can deliver value to our organization and at the same time our customers.
Yep. Yep. A great example of that is like, you're collecting, whether it's marketing or someone's collecting NPS ratings. You've got
Mhm.
support calls who are collecting, they usually have data on time to resolve, or,
Mhm.
length of time on, a support call, whatever it may be. Just starting to number crunch, like I said, like you were saying, everyone's collecting data. So you can
Mhm.
start correlating things so that you can address pain points in that journey that may be impacting your bottom line. That's more of an internal way of using it as well. So uh,
Mhm.
in addition to what I was mentioning earlier, where it's really using it to drive innovation within your offerings. It can also help with those internal processes as well.
Right. And when we think about the John Deere example,
Mhm.
you don't have to be in the farm or heavy machinery industry to use that model. You know,
Yes.
they're using sensor technology, they're using geospatial technology they're using meteorological.
Yeah.
Did I say that word right?
Yeah.
They're using that data as well. And so when you look at how they're aggregating all of that information, that is a way in which you're looking at different aspects of that ecosystem.
Yes.
And now you have the opportunity to combine all of that to not only help your consumer who is utilizing that machine within their particular context, but now you're helping others either in their area or
Yeah.
other areas globally who are leveraging that technology. And I think that's the really interesting part of it all is how you're now using this is where the Internet of Things comes in.
Yes.
And again, not only are you helping to optimize that one customer, but now you're delivering trends and forecasting and other types of data to your broader
Product. Yep.
customer base,
Yes.
or others who are not your customer that could use that data in some way.
I was about to say, going back to it's another opportunity to monetize that data.
Mhm.
You have, in addition to providing a great, service to your user base. So,
Mhm.
yeah. What are other ways?
So I also think that there are ways to look at how you can effectively use this data and to improve the way in which you manage inventory. I know what we saw in terms of the situation over the period where we had COVID and
Yep.
like
Yep.
we've seen skyrocketing online sales, for example. Um, being able to, I don't know if a lot of companies did the best job of predicting when that demand was going to decline. And so you have to almost wonder, were they utilizing expert data in conjunction with their own,
Yeah.
insights around what they were seeing in conjunction with kind of where the illness was and when people were getting back out and no longer, for example, buying things at home. So
Right.
what did that all mean in terms of the changes to your operations that
Yes.
maybe you previously hadn't considered or monitored at that level. So I think that there's a lot in terms of how you manage inventory and operations to be more effective in not wasting,
Yeah.
or to ensure that you don't have too long of a lead time before someone can get something in hand.
Yep. Yeah. That's a good example, actually, to leverage
So
it.
what are two strategies that you think in terms of the work that we've done, what are two of the most important strategies that you see in helping customers recognize the data that they have and the value that that data can bring?
So the first is what I said early on. To me, inventory. Inventory that data.
Hmm.
Figure out where you need more. Figure out what you have and how it might be leveraged. Don't throw away. I really do think don't throw away data, even if you don't need it now. So those are kind of like biggies on my list. Like
Hmm.
that I think people oftentimes miss. And don't be overwhelmed thinking about, how you leverage data. There
Hmm.
are a lot of people out there. I think it was a Forbes article I saw that was like copy and paste. Go look at some of these tech startups. Look at what they're doing. Look at how they're,
Right.
disrupting the industry through their utilization of data. Have hackathons. I think that same article talked about that. So it really
Hmm.
is, you don't have to get overwhelmed and reinvent the wheel. You
Hmm.
buy, you don't have to build, go buy, go
That's right.
buy that data or buy the tools for the companies who already, that's their thing, that's their forte. It's in their lane to warehouse this kind of
Hmm.
data. So those are kind of those are two pieces of advice when I look at people in like our role, user experience researchers, designers, product managers. Um, I I think you have to make a conscious effort when you're talking about product development.
Hmm.
Where can this data be inserted? Where might we
Yes.
select it, but how can we leverage it to have really innovative products that truly make the user's life easier? So
Yeah.
not taking over jobs, or we're not getting rid of the users, but just making things much more efficient and less error prone. And we've talked about many times when we talked about AI, when you're doing that journey mapping, when you're doing those task
Hmm.
workflows, consciously consider where you have data. that can be utilized for
Mhm.
that kind of machine learning or AI.
Mhm.
So that's my biggest piece of advice, especially for people in our role, is to make a conscious effort to consider that when
Mhm.
you're doing that, when you're really looking at that workflow and that journey map. Where can data help? Or where should we be collecting data?
Yes, that's another key. And I think that to add to what you're saying about people in roles that manage data to some extent, I think where the key also comes in is when you are talking to your customer, make sure that you're not only focused on the capability or the value that your solution provides, your product or your
Mhm.
service provides. But in that line of questioning, also ask about the things that they're not getting today that may be outside of the competencies of your organization in terms of what that product or that service does today, but that if you ask the right questions around, well, what are some of the inputs you use to these decisions, and what are the things that take you time to gather or collate or make sense of? And if it's something that is within the realm of the data that you have or the data that you can acquire,
There.
there's a huge opportunity.
Yes.
There's a huge opportunity for your organization. So I think that this is really, for me, enlightening around the fact that there's a flow there. And I think when we talk about, just as we talk through it, I realize some of what we have done, it's almost a system around assessing what you have,
Yes.
understanding where those gaps are, so then you can figure out, can I gather it or do I need to acquire it? And then how do I make sure that I understand within that process of inventory and gaps, what are the actual needs within my organization and my customer?
Yep.
And then how do I go from there in terms of figuring out the what around those gaps? And then how do we make this happen in terms of an implementation or an experience? So I love that in terms of kind of bringing it all together and understanding what value that or the opportunity that businesses have with this data.
Yes. Yes.
So awesome. So this was a good conversation, short and sweet. Well, it's kind of shorter and sweeter than usual. But anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. You have questions for us, do not hesitate to reach out. We are here. And as always, have a wonderful week and we'll see you next time.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.